I want to buy cigarettes from you.
We have a regular at the gas station I work.
No, not really a typical regular.
Comes in daily. She came in one evening and said she wanted to buy smokes.
I was like, sure, what kind do you want?
And the response was just, what do you have?
Which I thought kinda odd since we've a big wall just behind me with all our cigarettes and cigars on display.
When I rattle off what we have, she interrupts me. No, what do you have? I want however many you'll give me for this.
And she put like $2 on the counter. That's when it hit me.
You see, she has this kind of notoriety that goes with why I said she's not a typical regular. She comes in every day, but she rarely buys from the store. She will instead buy smokes from whoever is working, like buy a cigarette from their pack. I have to explain her that I don't smoke.
I didn't have any coworker at the moment either since he had to duck out for a few minutes.
She didn't believe me because apparently no one in their 20s doesn't smoke, and continued to ask and then demand I sell her one of the cigarettes from my own non-existent pack. She didn't want to spend $8 to $9 on her own pack, and was absolutely positive she had seen me smoking in front of the store before. I had a line forming behind her, a long one,
and I just gave up and told her that I don't smoke, and if I did, I had no reason to sell her my own personal stuff.
If she would like some smokes, she could buy a pack.
Otherwise, I needed her to leave the line as I had other customers waiting. Wasn't happy, but she left. Still comes in nearly daily and buys smokes off my coworker or from other customers now.
Still insists I smoke and was being a bad employee by not selling her my own cigs.
Headed for a bit added stuff, IDK when she claims to have seen me smoking.
I'm lucky if I get a 10-minute break to just eat something, and I sure ain't spending the time outside.
I had a breakdown in front of customers after being forced to work during a power outage. I used to work at a small grocery store in a very tourism-driven town. At the store, I worked a shift with what we called the Zillennial crew, because literally all of us, including the manager, are under the age of 24. Earlier this week, someone hit an electric pole with their car and knocked out the power for almost the entire town. This happened at about 5 p.m., which is 2.5 hours before the store closes. The store's backup generator kept things alive for about 10 minutes. Then everything went kaput. Everything except one check stand, at least. We think it had some kind of battery backup. Only half of it was working, though: the cashier screen with the buttons, the cash drawer, and the receipt printer. No barcode scanner, no produce scale, no card reader. When the manager called the big boss, he was actually very mad at the manager for calling because it interrupted his golf session. He was told, and I quote, "Since you still have a working check stand, you need to keep the store open until at least 6. Needless to say, myself and the rest of the crew weren't happy about that. But the big boss threatened to fire us if we didn't, so we tried to make the best of it. Since I had been assigned to the half-working check stand before the outage, and the manager didn't have a key to open the other cash drawers, I was going to have to check. After some brainstorming with the manager, I figured out how to manually put in grocery items, and the rest of the crew manned the automatic doors and searched for flashlights. The setup was something like this. To people at the doors, informing people of what was happening. Customers without cash were immediately turned away. Customers were advised to have some form of light to navigate the store, but we did have a few spare flashlights they could borrow. Customers told to not open freezer cooler doors until they were ready to make their selection. Customers told to take a picture of every item's price tag and show the pictures to me. I did that for an hour. On top of all that craziness, there were about a dozen alarms going off across the store because none of the coolers were on. A system meant to help ID if a cooler had stopped working, but not very helpful during a power outage. So there were a dozen or so loud, blaring, shrill beeps going off almost constantly. The entire hour. 6 o'clock finally comes around, and right on cue, my check stand dies. I immediately break down crying. I cannot form words. The crew explained to the customers and convinced them to put their items back. Everyone got really pissy because it was just working a second ago. I have to sit down and try to collect myself. One of the crew sits with me trying to help me with some relaxing breathing. One of the customers decided to be snotty on their way out and said something like, "Tell that fat stupid bitch to stand up and stop crying." They were forcibly escorted out by the manager and one of the burliest crew members. Manager calls big boss, tells him we're closing. Other workers sweep a bit and we all leave. I ended up quitting a few days later, but the whole situation still makes me mad.
working with a no-return refund policy. My coworkers and I suffered so much abuse because of the store's no-return policy. For context, it was a beach shop in a really popular tourist destination. The policy existed because people on vacation would buy everything they needed, then return it all at the end of their stay. It was also a health safety issue because people often tried to return their worn or broken bathing suits. I'm not exaggerating. 2 out of 3 times, the bottoms presented to me would have skid marks in them. I kept disinfectant spray at my counter because of it. To deter this, my boss put up giant signs everywhere that said no returns, refunds. Followed up with the details. All this was in place years before I started working there. Employees were required to repeat it before every transaction, and it was printed on every receipt. Despite this, people would still come back determined to get a refund. Once a lady had a full-on meltdown because she couldn't return her ripped-up bathing suit top. She was crying, screaming, shaking, and chased my boss around the store with it. I had to call the police for them to make her leave. Another time, a grown man chucked their beach chair at my 5 female coworker. Regardless of how people feel about the policy, the store absolutely was within their rights to enforce it. No one tricked the customers either. It's actually embarrassing how in your face we had to be about the policy. So why did customers still try to return things, then go crazy when they couldn't?
I am sorry for mixing up bills. I'm colorblind. Let me fix that. Bye. This is my first good story to share here. In Canada, our bills are stupid. Not only do they get stuck together all the time, but the 5s and 10s are blue and purple, and the 20s, 50s, 100s are green, red, and brown. So it's a problem for me being colorblind, but I just look at the number and it's a big deal. Last night I was working cash at the local grocery store when a lady maybe in her 30s comes through with an order that was for $95, and she hands me a single bill, which was one of the bigger bills, so I punched $20 into the machine and hand her the change. This is where weirdness begins. Hi, I handed you a 50. The OGs, I'm sorry. I pressed my open till button, and sure enough there was a 50 where the 20 should be, so I fixed her change and handed back. Me sorry, I'm colorblind and didn't think you would give me a 50 for a small order. Ha, why? Me pardon. Ha, why are you colorblind? Me do you mean why I'm on cash? That's a question I get a lot. I'm a guy cashier, so I am used to it. Ha, no, why can't you see colors properly? Me, my eyes just don't. How, bye.
Check out my other superb videos